If you do mind being recorded, you may want to jump off the call right now. You can always watch the recording later, but that's your disclosure statement. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Tori Miller-Lew. I'm the president and CEO of the Association for Intelligent Information Management. And we've been doing these town halls about quarterly now. And for us on staff and also our board of directors, it's really an opportunity to hear from members about how can we better provide value to you in your day-to-day jobs? How do you think AIIM's doing? What can we do better? And what are we doing really well? So it's a great opportunity for us to get feedback and also just hear from you. So today for the town hall, we're going to be focusing on AIIM's new content strategy. And my two main goals for this is one, I want to share the content strategy with you all and get your feedback. And then I also really want to hear what content you're interested in. Along the way, I'll share a little bit of research and information that we've been collecting over the last year or so for your own edification, but also to give you some background on how we got to this point with this new content strategy. So let's jump right in. So I think most of the folks, since you're all members, probably know our history, but AIIM was founded in 1944, and we represent a global community of 60,000 plus information management practitioners who believe, to sum it all up, that great information powers great organizations. And this phrase we might repeat a couple times on the call today, but for us, it's really the summation of our content strategy. We want to focus on how do we get really great information into really great organizations and help those organizations thrive from that great unstructured data. This diagram might be familiar to a few of you who are on the January town hall, but we came up with this Foresight First timeline in collaboration with leadership and members last year. And what we wanted to do is map out the future of the industry and what those plausible futures might look like. So we looked at societal, technological, and industry shifts that might occur in the next 2 years and over the next decade. We tried to go pretty far out. And you can look at this in the recording. I'm also happy to share it with folks. But the key trend that I really want to dive into a little bit deeper is this one. It's in the lower green corner here, the lower green row here that says information management evolves beyond a single profession. So let's explore that a little bit deeper and unpack that for a moment. What we have been seeing in the last 2-3 years at AIIM is the dawn of what I call the information leader, where we're having fewer and fewer people who might have the formal traditional title of records manager or information governance manager, but they're still practicing information management. And we've seen this amongst the participants at the AIIM conference. I'll share some research in a little bit, but we're also seeing this even in our responses for our State of the Practice survey. So with that more inclusive community, we also believe that the practice of information management is almost superseding the professionals. So there are absolutely still professionals. Some of them are on the call today, and the profession of information management is still vitally important. But I think we have to recognize with our content strategy and with the focus at AIIM that the practice itself is also important. We want every knowledge worker to understand how to practice good information management. And they might have varying degrees of maturity in information management, but it is absolutely a skill for the future. So we've been talking a lot about information leader to be very inclusive in our language. And if you are wondering, this very creepy image was developed with the AI. It was Google Gemini, and I find it very disconcerting and I don't like it, but I have not removed it from my slide deck either. So with the Foresight timeline and this new thinking about who information leaders are and who's actually practicing the art and skill of information management, our board of directors in October created this new vision for the organization where we want to create a world where every organization benefits from intelligent information management and data management to reach better business outcomes. Again, we're being very inclusive with our language by also including data management, because not everyone in our industry knows what information is, or knows what content is, or knows what data is. And at the end of the day, it's all stuff in a box that we need to be concerned about for the management of our organizations, the performance of our organizations, and preparedness when it comes to AI and automation. The board also developed a new mission statement, which is really what we do and how we create value for members. And our mission is to equip those information leaders with essential tools to harness the power of information. We do that by providing use cases, certification, training, and guidance. And AIIM empowers organizations to leverage information management to unlock the full potential of AI, process automation, and emerging technologies. Now, if you were at the January town hall, you might notice this mission statement reads a little bit differently. We're an agile organization, and we've been learning and adapting as we go. And what we've learned about our mission statement is we do need to explicitly state and highlight the fact that AIIM, throughout its 80-year history, has been really focused on technology and how we can leverage technology to improve information management. And we are also finding, and this is some really early results from our State of the Practice survey this year that some of you may have responded to, that information management is increasingly important. 73% of the survey respondents let us know that information management is going to become increasingly important over the next 12 months. And what I think is really important about that particular statistic is we had about 433 respondents to this year's survey, which was probably a record for us. That's quite a lot of respondents. 97% of those respondents said that they either were directly or partially involved in information management. So I think they present a really clear insights into the importance of information management and how it's being thought about and treated within their organizations. In the same survey, we also asked people about what kind of skill sets they want to build over the next 12 months. And I don't think it would be terribly surprising to folks, but 54% of our respondents want to learn about AI governance and AI. 36% want to learn about information governance. And I think where I actually was also surprised is that even though we've been hearing from a lot of members that they want more content on change management, only 21% were interested in learning about change management. And we've asked people to pick like their top 3 skills. So change management just wasn't the top 3. It doesn't mean it's not important. It just means it ranked a little bit lower. So before I keep going, let me pause for a second. I would love to hear how you all would respond to this question. So if you were thinking about maybe the top 3 skills that you want to improve in the next 12, oh, that's a fun typo, in the next 12 months, let me know what those top 3 skills are. You can either come off mute and share that verbally, or you're welcome to put that in chat. And John Chickering's pointing out that there's no mention of security on the skills. Security actually was one of the options for that question. It just didn't rank in the top 3 for people.
I kind of did, Tori. So first off, thank you. I'm not at all surprised that you had it on there, because I know how well you govern your process of getting those surveys put together. I think it is I am still absorbing the fact that security wasn't there, and I asked myself if it's really just the lack of any newspaper-worthy security press, so to speak, recently that wasn't top of mind. I am somewhat circumspect on the whole AI thing, because thank you 60 Minutes for 2 episodes focusing on ChatGPT to bring it to the relevance. Or at least to front of mind, and that's where we see it. I also think it's a bit of a. I am questioning whether it's a flash in the pan that's going to fizzle away like cyber did a couple of years ago and get to be replaced by something else, or whether it's got some enduring stay.
What are others' thoughts about that? Is it all hype? Do we think it's long lasting on the industry?
The AI side, I'm seeing a lot push, but a lot of it's coming out of legal, more out of fear about what people are going to have access to. So that kind of pushes right back into really how people are securing the information, so that through AI, when people are posing their chats, that they're not getting information they shouldn't. The legal's driving that.
See, I'm in a law firm and I'm seeing a lot of AI talk, but it's being driven by our knowledge lawyers and our IT. And I'm constantly having to stick my foot in the door to get the recognition that I need to be involved in it as the IG leader of the firm.
Yeah, and I think, oh, go ahead.
Tori, we're using artificial intelligence today, and we're actually linking a couple things, number 1 and number 3. We're using artificial intelligence today to help drive process and workflow automation, and process documentation, especially where the process documentation doesn't exist. AI can help accelerate the development of that documentation.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with my CISO this morning to discuss some Copilot use cases that we are testing out here at the bank, and that's, we're getting more down the line of just beyond curation to actually using one model to solve another issue, and kind of really going through what that would look like in an environment where we have unstructured information sprawl.
Is that going to be your organization? I think that was Brian. Brian, is that going to be the first model that's been employed at Frost Bank?
We have other models that are deployed for fraud and other kinds of like financial crimes and things like that. What our CISO is kind of we're tinkering around with right now is potentially using that to mitigate unknown threats that exist in a lot of our legacy environments. So think of your junk drawer, which is everyone's file share, or depending on how long you've been in M365, your OneDrives and things like that, to really begin to leverage things like potentially Copilot for the stuff that's in OneDrive and SharePoint Online, or other AI tools, large language models for on-prem stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I think if I had to sum up and paraphrase what I've just heard from you all, is that I think information manager and information management as a practice is where the rubber meets the road when it comes to AI. And Jed kind of alluded to this in one of his comments in the chat, that information management and information governance are truly foundational to AI. And that's a belief that we've adopted into this new content strategy. I think there has been a lot of hype about AI. I agree with some of the folks in chat that I don't think it's a flash in the pan. I do think it's here to stay. I think it's going to accelerate. I think it's going to have a deeper impact on the information management industry. And the data that I'm seeing in the State of the Practice report backs that up. But I do think that we now need to make sure that we're equipping our community to help organizations responsibly adopt AI. And I do think that responsibility comes with information governance and information management practices. And so I wasn't surprised that it ranked so high. And I think that is going to be very representative of the future of content at AIIM for the foreseeable future. Any other thoughts about the top skills? John, sorry, I just looked at John Daly's comment that he asked Copilot to draft an email saying how much value he brings to the company, and he got a 404 error. That's great.
I would like to discuss a little bit the difference between information governance and information management. Why they're listed separately.
So from an AIM perspective, we view information governance as a subset of information management. Information management encompasses the people, processes, technology, and practices around how you manage and prepare unstructured data. And so if you look at the CIP body of knowledge, it treats information governance very much as a subset. And I know some of that's down to semantics because Susan, I'd love to hear your definition of it, but I know there are folks that say, well, that's actually information governance. And if I have a conversation with Nate Hughes, my counterpart over at ARMA, he will say the exact opposite, that information management is a subset of IG.
And I agree with that. That's how I view it.
Yeah. We view it, and maybe Jed or others who've helped develop the CIP in the past can provide some supporting evidence of this, but I personally also view information management as higher than information governance, not in a judgmental way. It's just really around I see IG is really around the rules around how you treat information, and information management is more of a system thinking approach to how you treat unstructured data. But Jed, would you agree with that statement, and
Yeah.
how would you add?
I'd go with that. Management is a broader term, whether it's information management, knowledge management, people management. Not sure what HR call it these days. I'm not up to speed with the trends. But management is a very, very broad term. Governance is more specific. Governance, generally, if you look up the, Wikipedia or a dictionary definition, governance is a much narrower, more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more narrowly defined term. So I agree. I think governance is the subset of management, and Susan, no.
Yeah, you see me coming off camera because I'm going to answer you.
Yeah, I knew. And by the way, for anybody who doesn't know us, Susan and I know each other, so I
Yes,
wasn't
very well.
rude.
I would somewhat disagree with, I don't disagree with your definition and reading, what Wikipedia might say and everything, but I think that the terms have been bastardized so that those of us that are in information governance, information management is a subset of what we are doing, instead of the other way around, because we're finally reaching the point. I mean, I'm in a law firm, so I'm very old school with the people that I work with. And, every day I have, somebody new started, they bring them to introduce me and they're like, she's head of records. And I'm like, no, I'm not head of records. Let's redefine that. But it's a newer term. And I think if we started to throw in, especially in my field, if I started to say I'm head of information management, I would confuse everybody even more so than they already are. Whereas being head of information governance, they see information management as a subset and component of what I do.
So, Tori, may I respond before you do?
Yeah, please. This is fun to watch.
Jed and I
I'm
can
gonna bring you
give
guys
us a
back to the
drink. We'll
annual
go for
event with
hours.
this.
No. Like, I'm sure Susan and I have had this conversation before, and there was alcohol involved.
Yes.
And we'll probably have it again. I would say the semantics are only important to us as professionals, and that to organizations, it doesn't matter. You call it what resonates in the organization. And if in legal, and I have worked in at least corporate legal, not in a law firm, governance resonates, right? So absolutely, call it information governance, and don't try and tell people that you're in information management, because as you said, it will confuse them. That's one industry vertical. In others, it will play the other way around. And Tori may agree or disagree. I don't think it matters, right? As long as you have words and titles that resonate in your company so that your colleagues understand what you do, that's the key thing.
I agree with that. I think at the end of the day, you cater to your audience, and for information management, it's in AIIM's name. There's no way that I'm going to start saying IG instead of IM, but I'm also speaking to a different audience than Susan's audience. So I think that's okay. Susan,
Yeah, I do agree with that. I actually had this conversation I promoted somebody on my team recently, and it took IT quite a long time in HR to get her title changed for her email signature and everything. And she was getting very upset about that. And I was kind of like, are you doing the job, and are you getting the correct salary for your promotion? She's like, yes. And I was like, it's all that matters. It's like, I don't care what it says.
That's very pragmatic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, John, did you have your hand raised?
I do. So Tori, first off, I'll point out that you know the photographer who took that picture of me.
I
Amy,
do.
Amy took it when I was AIM chair at the show in Washington
Oh, wow.
a long time ago. So in the interest of I'll go full white hair cotton top now on you.
Oh, you look just the same.
The truth comes out.
Yeah. And so if this were a Star Wars movie, there'd be something about a place far away, long time ago thing. But I think Jed hits the nail on the head in that the back and forth on the terms, it just needs to be defined and in terms that the audience can understand and then stuck to consistently. And then on my flash in the pan comment, and I say I got it, so it was provocative enough to get some reaction to. What I think is the flash in the pan is the interest, not necessarily the technology. And that's kind of where I'm going with that. Because in my experience, I was at a consulting firm in the 1980s that had an artificial intelligence group. And so, yes. So this has been, frankly, I can remember some of my early computing classes in Montgomery County, Maryland, in the 1970s, where what was described to me as when I go back, is that that's the early days of AI. And so it's been around a long time, and it's taken, frankly, the press, and that's why I cited 60 Minutes, because I really think that it was those two 60 Minutes segments really kicked it up. And so many of you know Thornton May, and Thornton's next workshop is you have to have an AI story. Doesn't mean you have to have AI, doesn't mean you have to have a policy, doesn't mean you have to have governance. But if you're a CIO, you need to have an AI story. And so having been on the board, my thing, for you, Tori, is how are you going to monetize this? And so that's where, and so that's why I have the kind of the be careful here. We need to have enough, but if we think, just let's not confuse the interest in the technology with the flash in the pan. Everybody outside of technology is there. I mean, in the 1990s, every single technology presentation I saw, the very first slide was a picture of the space shuttle, whether or not the technology had anything to do with the space shuttle or not, right? And then a few years ago, everything was about cybersecurity, keeping the bad guys out, and we've been through that. So
Yeah.
That's my white-haired circumspect offer for you this afternoon.
No, and I think that's a good segue to the content strategy and just very briefly, for those who aren't familiar with the content strategy, the way AIM is doing a content strategy and the way many other organizations do is we're outlining what our key messages are, who's our audience, and really thinking about, if we're looking at a content funnel, which is what you see on screen here, how do we create general awareness? How do we create deeper engagement? How do we convert interested parties to be members and part of our community? How do we retain those members? And then how do we advocate for those members once they're at the very bottom of the funnel there? So with our strategy, we were talking very much about that key message, John, that you're asking about. So how do we really lean into AIM's history with AI? Because for AIM, this isn't a new thing. It's not like we just woke up in November 2022 and said, hey, now we know about AI. I don't think it's false with AIM. We have a very long history in machine learning, in automation. We are very well equipped to talk about AI. That said, I also don't think that AIM needs to play a role in doing general education about AI, or teaching people how to build large language models, or talking about ChatGPT every single day. There are many other credible sources for how to do that, how to learn about that, etc. So really what we wanted to do is think about, how do we talk about AI and automation with the lens of unstructured data management or information management? So I'll share this next slide with you because it kind of sums up how we do that and how we're thinking about that. So in a very simple statement, and this chart was designed by our executive committee, actually in San Antonio, in the hallway. So we just started drafting like, okay, this is what that message looks like for AIM. So for AIM, we feel like we want to be sharing practical use cases, training, guidance, and tools on AI process automation, and other emerging technologies, because that's AIM's MO, by the way. We've never just talked about AI. We were literally founded by microfilm executives. So we've always talked about technology, and we're always looking for what that next technology might be that advances information management. So we want to talk about AI and process automation that's powered by good information and data management practices. So for us, that's kind of the unique lens. And even this week when I was, we have a brand new newsletter coming out soon, and I was helping to edit that newsletter, I was striking stories that were just general news about AI and putting instead stories that were talking about how do we prepare unstructured data for AI? Or what has an intelligent document processing vendor done recently? So really focusing in on our industry and our niche, I think is really key for this content strategy to be effective. So let me pause there for a second, because this is kind of this little slide is actually the crux of our content strategy. And I'm very curious for those on the phone, how do you respond to this? Is this something you like? Is it something you don't like? If this was directing stories and articles and webinars that AIM was producing, would you consume them? What are your thoughts? Jed so.
Tori, Franz here, 100%. I love the focus on process automation. I think more and more I'm seeing more interest, more investment being made on the information governance side, because process automation is leading the charge. I see a lot more interest from the executive and process automation solutions, and then we get information governance as a important byproduct if we do it properly. And I think that's the part of the education I think is important.
So just to be the devil's advocate, naysayer, is it missing? It's too narrowly focused on AI and process automation, because those are the words that leap out at me in the middle box visually. And like some of the conversations I had with people in San Antonio was like, sick of hearing about AI. I've got boxes full of paper. Like, this has got nothing to do with me. How do I get from boxes full of paper to AI? And I wonder if we're just missing out too many things. And I know it's difficult. You can't put all the words on a slide. But I mean, that was why we used to talk about enterprise content management, because it was an all-encompassing term. I'm not saying we return to that, by the way. We've moved on. But yeah, I just wonder if those two being squared like that in the center is just seems like it's pushing us into a very niche area.
Yeah, and maybe the next slide might help with that a little bit, Jed, because I put this together to basically answer that question. So I wanted to demonstrate that we are going to continue to offer content on information management. That's in our name. We will always do that, but it needs to be almost like a triangle, right? Like it's unlikely that we would just talk about information management for the sake of information management. We would always talk about how it leads to better business outcomes, which these days is often better outcomes related to AI or automation. So it's more than likely that you will see, like, let's say at least two of those things talked about in the same body of content, as opposed to just one thing. We're not going to just publish a generic thing on AI. It's going to be AI with the lens of information management, which is why we would talk about information validation and not this is what a large language model is.
So there's a really good point. So if you go back to the last slide, nothing about this screams positive business outcomes.
Oh.
Or value generation at me, right?
Yeah,
I read this as an AIIM professional, and it's very interesting. It speaks to me as someone who's in the profession. If we're trying to speak to leaders, like, shouldn't this say somewhere this is all about positive business outcomes and value creation?
And that's exactly where I was at, Jed, in that, Tori, my question on slide 12, I think this is slide 12, is to do what? Now, I have an answer, and it's been one that I've been bouncing around with colleagues for a while. And how do I want to phrase this? all of the, and so it goes back to you, Jed, your example of talking to people. I've got boxes of papers that I need to deal with, right? I mean, that's something, and frankly, that is, if you will, our legacy challenge that goes back to 1946, was it? Or, a long time ago.
44.
Even before me, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so one of our, and I'm also going to pull in another point that you've shared with us a couple of times, Tori, and that we've historically been a very technology focused organization. And so I will offer that where we come in and where the use cases, the training, the guidance and tools all raise the standard of expertise of our practitioners in our community. The point is this: we need to have good solution design. We need to have, and it could be, how do I deal with the boxes? How do I open the account? How do I check for fraud? How do I, whatever, right? And what we do has to enfold itself, align with, integrate with, weave itself, use whatever consulting terms you want to use right now, if any. It has to get baked into the system development process. And the solution so I call define, design, develop, deploy, deliver as my 5-step model for how we in technology put our stuff out there for the business to use to create those outcomes. You're way up front at the cool part called define and design. And so where AIM has had, frankly, a challenge for as long as I've known it, it has been to not be the carnival sideshow of look at all these cool toys we have, and look at all these important things we know, but how to get all that baked into the solution life cycle.
Yeah, and I like the word solution. I think for our staff and executive committee, we were using the word practical to hint at that, but maybe I could picture that good solution design maybe being vertical on the left side here and sort of encompassing, like, we're doing IM and AI process automation to develop good solutions to real problems. We're not just inventing solutions. We're not doing AI for the sake of AI or IM for the sake of IM. It's all solutions to real problems.
All right, you have to introduce your canine.
This is T-Rex, and she is a monster. She's also a girl, even though her name is T-Rex.
T could be Tina.
She was actually Tina when we adopted her. My husband didn't like the name. Other thoughts about this? So, yeah, Jed saying the solutions is on point.
Yeah, I mean, I somewhat agree with Jed because I think AI and process automation are key, but if I'm looking at as, in my type of role and I'm looking, do I want to join AIM? And all I see is you're sharing about AI and process automation, I probably would not get involved. Knowing what I know about AIM, I know there's far more. But to me, this isn't as relevant. It's more of an IT focus than an information governance focus, reading the way that this is written.
Do others agree with that?
No, I don't. I think that information governance needs to be part of AI process automation, and we need to continue to encourage that relationship with AT so that IG is part of these strategies and implementations. By the way, I also like Jed's suggestion of leading to better business outcomes.
Yeah, I'm not saying that IG shouldn't be a part of AI. I mean, I agree completely with what you just said, but I'm just saying if I came to AIM, I know absolutely nothing about AIM, and I'm looking at this slide and I'm seeing that you're an organization that shares use case training, guidance, and tools related to AI and process automation and other emerging technologies. To me, it wouldn't fit my needs as an organization. Now, I know AIM is far more than that, and I know that it's worthwhile, but I'm saying someone that had never been an AIM member before, had no background, and this is what I saw as an IG professional. I would probably steer away from joining AIM and look for another association.
I think that's a fair comment. I do think this goes a little bit back to the information leader slide and really defining. I think someone suggested, like, how do you actually define information leader?
Me.
The way that we're starting to define it is really based on our data. We are seeing that more professionals from IT, from HR, from finance are engaging with AIM because they have problems that need to be solved. So the audience is becoming diversified for AIM. We still very much want to cater to the needs of information managers, record managers, and information governance professionals. But the reality is we're serving a much broader audience. And I think this is an attempt, and hopefully a decent attempt, at how do you meet the needs of a very diverse audience?
Well, and to that point, I'm beginning to get questions from my CIO and my CISO on things like what I just mentioned around Copilot, but also other endeavors to, you know, continuously trim as we're updating and modernizing. How do we get rid of the backlog of crap that's been accumulated for decades? And so, you know, sending them a white paper on, you know, AI usage or you know, implications, you know, regarding the misuse of AI, you know, is helpful. But I think what I hope that doesn't happen is they think, well, that's Brian's thing, and not, hey, this has got my attention. Let me see let me see if we need to send someone else there. And that's the conversation I had last month following the AIM conference, was talking to my CISO, and he says, you know, I think we need to start looking at getting our IT partners to go with you to some of this stuff, because that's, to me, that's the hook, and the bait is being able to say, hey, here's some interesting tidbits I found out about. You know, we need to be careful when we're implementing, you know, labeling in M365, or you know, here's some things that I learned from Jed about about some you know, hallucinations in AI, you know, or whatever. Those kinds of things help me on the inside to get more people to come to these webinars and come to the conferences to kind of, you know, see what they're missing. I guess that as my wife would say, FOMO, right? I hope I'm using that right.
But I do think one of the takeaways I'm going to take from Susan, your comment, is this slide is really a broad stroke. It's kind of trying to encompass everything we want to do with our content. I still think we need to curate this and personalize it based on different personas. And so we do have a persona in our content strategy and in our audience that is the career professional, that we need to make sure that this is still catering to them and catering to Susan and others who specialize in the field. Do you all agree with that? If we make sure that we're curating the messaging, would that help address those needs?
I think, yes, obviously, but I'm glad you're tackling this, not me, because we live in a digital world. Literally everything in business, well, not everything, I suppose some people could still run on paper, but just about every business is digital. Therefore, everything is underpinned by data, information, knowledge management. So we're literally the broadest possible set of audiences you could address, because everybody touches digital content in some form or another, unless they're living under a rock or sheep farming in Afghanistan. And that makes picking your target audience and setting up your personas really difficult, because there's so many.
For us, there are 4. We got it down to 4. We have, I'll tell you guys the name. Maybe in the next town hall, I'll show you the stock photography pictures we have for these folks. But there's consultant Chris. There is solution Selena. So that would be an executive at one of our solution providers. And there's leader Layla. Susan would be a great example of that. Many of you would be great at that. They're professionals, career lifers in IM and IG. And then we have the Project Pauls, who we can actually track this in our membership data. They join, or their organizations join, because they had a project to implement. And they might come back when they do the next project, but they are not going to be consistent members of our community. So we need to find a way to help them solve the problems that they're coming to us to solve, and make them feel welcome, but also sort of be okay that it may not be feasible to retain them year over year. It's really dependent on their needs. So like Jed said, it's it's a really hard problem to unpack. How do you help the Project Pauls and serve the leader Layla as well?
Well done. I mean, you got it down to 4. What the heck?
Yeah. I'm going to do a bounty prize if someone can help me figure out how to serve those audiences well. But we'll keep working on it, right? So I know we're coming up on time here. Let me go to this next slide and let's take maybe like a minute here. Let's consider these bullet points as maybe like possible articles or online learning programs that you could experience at AIIM. What I'd love to hear in chat or verbally is, would you like that program? Would you read something about that? Are we missing something? Is there a topic on here that might be missing from here that you would really want to see from AIIM in the next month?
So one thing that kind of jumps out from my memory from the last month was Peter Aiken coming out and talking about data governance and a little bit on what Jed was talking about, that is that bleed over. I know from talking to my peer in data governance here, there's a lot of talk about that bleed over into quality and lineage, as well as data lifecycle management. And so I wonder if there's some opportunity in here to kind of build on some of that was talked about at the conference with Peter.
Yeah, I like that idea. So that would be some kind of content on data quality, data lineage, and perhaps the overlap between data management and information management. That's great.
Yeah.
And John suggesting security, that's a good one. Okay, here's one that I personally want to research and learn about, and I might actually end up developing content for AIM around it. I actually believe that the techniques and practices for preparing data for particularly Gen AI models is different than other types of data preparation. And so I really want to dive into, okay, if I know that this is going into an AI model, how does my data augmentation practices change? Or how does my data standardization practices change? Now, caveat, I used to work in data analytics, so I can kind of geek out on that. But do you all agree that it's different and might require some analysis? Oh, Franz likes it. Okay, Franz, will you write that for me, please?
So there's there's an interesting topic on that, on using MLMs to solve large LLM issues. Is that kind of what you're talking about, Tori?
I wasn't, but I want to know more about that. Wait, people are using multimodal LLMs to solve LLMs?
So that's something that my CISO and I were talking about over tacos recently, and because we were both discussing unstructured, how do we get awareness around unstructured, and so we started talking about MLMs as a means to try to get at that, because it approaches that model approaches things a little bit differently, and then to utilize that as kind of like a curation method to then be able to feed an LLM to be able to achieve other goals, right? And so we were just kind of kicking that around. So I didn't know if that's what you were talking about just now or not.
No, I mean, I was thinking more, I guess, at a higher level, like how do you think differently about data hygiene as it relates to AI? But that's another really interesting topic, because you're right, like the multimodal models are better at they're equipped for unstructured data in a way that large language models really aren't. And so, like, did you guys see all the articles recently about how ChatGPT has run out of internet? Most internet is structured data. So the untapped gold mine for AI is really unstructured data. So you want to figure out how you use multimodal models to feed the large language models.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly, yeah, that's what we were talking about, exactly.
That's cool. Okay, can I come to the next taco date so that I can like, brainstorm with you guys?
By all means, you are invited to the next Bolitos Tacos.
Yes.
It's a version of what I've been calling the virtuous circle of AI, right? You improve your content for use by Gen AI by using good old-fashioned machine learning, because people don't want to classify, they don't want to put things into taxonomies, people don't want to write 15 fields of metadata. So you get a machine learning model to do all that for you, which better prepares that content for access by LLMs. So it's a very circular, it's a very Uberos eating its own tail thing.
The snake is eating the tail. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's probably another content idea in there, Jed, that I heard mentioned at Document Strategy Forum this week. But how do we help people figure out which technology to pick? Because AI, large language models, are not always going to be the right thing. You may just need like RPA to solve your problem. You shouldn't default to AI every single time. So how do you make an educated decision about which technology is the best? Or how do you decide whether to buy or build AI?
Yep.
Yeah.
Most of our clients, has already been
Totally.
mentioned, most of our clients are just freaking out about, they don't understand enough. Even with everything, because I work for a Microsoft partner, so everything is Microsoft focused, but even with all the material Microsoft puts out explaining everything about their architecture, people still come to us freaking about what Copilot can see and what it can't see.
Yep.
It also might be a hint that they need to be even a little more transparent.
Or we have to have really good QA QC processes.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
both.
That could be another content idea. Well, I know now we're probably over time, and Allie had to hop off early, so she's not here to come out with the hook and swing me off stage. So I'll leave you all with this. This is a really lovely quote that Karen Hobart, our current chair at AIIM, shared in October last year at an event, and it's something that I frequently bring up in a lot of my speeches, that information management is not a role, it's a need. And so I think that's really directing a lot of our content strategy. But what we do need is wonderful folks like you in our community. So I want to thank everyone for your feedback today. We did record this, so I think Allie's going to share it out with everyone. But if you have other ideas for content, or if you would like to contribute content to AIM or collaborate on content with AIM, you all know how to get a hold of me, but I'll put it in chat as well. You are welcome to email me anytime. I love hearing from members, especially if they bring me tacos. And I hope everyone has a really great day. Thanks everybody for your time today.